So let's dive right in to the introduction to the commercial painting market segment. So the first thing to introduce here is that commercial painting is not as simple as just commercial painting. Okay, there's different aspects to it. So when I first wanted to start getting into this business, this is what I needed to figure out is where do I want to be and what are the different segments? Where's their good work? Where's their bad work? Where's there's higher margins? Where's their low margins? Where's there more risk? Where's there's less risk? That's what we wanted to look at. So there's really, to keep this simple, there's really 4 segments of the market in commercial painting. And we go into a little bit more detail than this in the course, but there's commercial repaints, and there's light commercial repaints and large commercial repaints. Then there's general contractor. There's light GC work and large GC work, just referring to the size and scope of the projects. There's light industrial, and then there's government and public work. So we're going to dive into a little bit more detail about all 4 of these segments. So commercial repaint, your customers in commercial repaint are building owners and investors, property managers, and HOAs, mostly. Sometimes it might be a business owner who owns their building. You might work for community managers or asset managers. There might be other titles, but essentially these are the customers. We're working directly for the building owner or the commercial real estate investor, or working for the property management company that manages the property, or we're working directly for an HOA that oversees, the condominium complex, the townhome complex, the apartment complex, the home association, and all the homes, and like that. What types of work are in this segment? Hospitality, retail, churches, restaurants, tenant improvement, whether that's business offices and business tenants, or residential, like apartments, condos, townhomes, business offices, both interior and exterior. All these could be interior and exterior. And then take the word small away, because that's if we were talking about light commercial repaint. It's just HOA and housing. So that could be condos, townhomes, single family communities. And then also we could do medical offices and buildings, take away the small word. So this is the type of work. Now the pros to the commercial repaint market is you're usually working directly with the owner or directly with the person responsible for maintenance on behalf of the owner. Payment is predictable. We know when we're going to get paid. It's not difficult to get paid. Terms for payment are negotiable. For example, if you're doing work for a property manager, they already have the money sitting there in an account for the maintenance budget. It's sitting there ready to be spent. So the money's there, the payment's predictable, and the terms are negotiable. You can take down payments, you can take progress payments, and so on, which means minimal cash flow is required, not due to the smaller job sizes. That would be referring just to light commercial. Minimal cash flow is required because of the flexible payment terms. Now, you also shouldn't go from doing, $10,000 job to an $800,000 job. You should step that up slowly, even in any one of these segments. But cash flow is a benefit here compared to some of the other segments. Projects are similar to what you currently do. So if you're a residential painter right now, then these types of projects are pretty similar. I'm in my office right now, and if you look around, it's very similar to painting the interior of a home if you were to paint the interior of this office. We did the outside of this building, and it was pretty similar to painting the outside of a home. It's a little taller, and we need to use a different product because it's metal, but it wasn't very different from painting a home. If you're doing townhomes, condos, apartment complex, these are kind of big houses. So that's what's nice is projects are similar to what you currently do. So there's not as many surprises on types of work that you already do in repaints. And what's really nice about that is you can use the same subcontractors or painters that you currently use. The downside to commercial repaints is timing of their projects. Sometimes the timing isn't very flexible. They might be working on deadlines or something like that. And then sometimes you need off hours work schedules. So you may need to work nights or weekends. But this is the segment where you might paint we've done some of these and they've worked out really well. We did right across the street here, there's a $75,000 job we did, where we made $35,000 in profit on it. So it's very profitable. It took us 10 days to do, and it was basically a condominium town or apartment building. So really great jobs, high margins, stuff you already know how to do. Also, what's nice is you already know how to estimate these jobs as well. All right, general contractor. So this segment. So here, your customers are general contractors. You're working for general contractors. They're the ones you're putting your bids into. They're the ones hiring you. And the type of work in this segment is new construction or renovations. So it could be something built from the ground up or a redo or renovation of some sort. So the pros to general contractor stuff is once you have a relationship, they keep giving you work, right? If you do a job for a general contractor and it goes well and you really nurture that relationship, they're going to need a painter on basically every single job they do. So once you're in, they're going to keep giving you a lot of work. So that's really good once you have a good relationship. Business to business makes the sales process easier once you have that relationship because it's not really a sales process. They're basically just getting a price from you and you're doing it. And then good relationships here can be really, really good for those first two reasons. A good relationship is like, you know, they're professional, they're organized, they pay you well, they pay you on time, they're ethical. That's what we mean by good relationship. Good margins, good payment terms, they're organized on top of their stuff, so they're not making your life hard, and they're ethical. And I bring up ethical because that's one of the cons is there's a lot of unethical general contractors. So cons, working around other trades can be a pain in the ass. Projects can last a long time because a whole renovation or a whole new construction project can just last a long time. Payment can be difficult to get or take a long time to get. You know, we did a job for, they were renovating a Rite Aid pharmacy and we did the painting. It was $30,000. It took us 9 months to get paid. We finally got paid because Rite Aid seized the books of the general contractor because they weren't paying any of their subs. And Rite Aid started issuing checks out. That's how we finally got paid, is we complained to Rite Aid enough that they stepped in and took over. So it can be difficult to get paid or take a long time to get paid. Usually it's smaller margins, smaller profit margins, because the GC is putting in a bid for the amount and then they're trying to get everything done for as little as possible to make their profit margin. Now there's some GCs that will bid cost plus. So they're charging the customer. So if you're charging more, they're still making their same percentage. In fact, since they're making a percentage on top, they actually make a little more if you charge more. So there's some GCs where margins are better than others, but usually this is going to be something you'll run into. There's risk working with general contractors who you don't already have a working relationship with. So there's a lot of shady GCs out there. And this is not my words. This is what I've gathered from all the people I've spoke to. I've heard people say, I think general contractors go through a class on how to screw people. That reputation has been earned. Now, obviously that's not all general contractors, but Greg, who I'll introduce you to at the end here, that's all he does is do work for general contractors. And he's been totally stiffed before, where the GC said, hey, I owe you 10 grand. I'm not going to pay you. So if you want to get that money, you're going to have to put an attorney on retainer. That's going to cost you $4 grand. I'm going to drag this out as long as possible. It's going to end up costing you $7,000 or $8,000 and you're not even going to get paid in full. So it'd be stupid for you to do that. So we're just going to call this good and you're kicked off the job. And it's true. There's nothing that you can do. And that happened to my friend as well, who didn't get paid $90,000 at the end of a job. He was right at the end. They kicked him off. They owed him $90K for work he had completed. They didn't pay him. He took him to court. It took a year in court and he ended up getting paid $50,000 of the 90. So these are the risks. We'll get to how to avoid some of these risks later, but that's a risk. And then I had another friend who didn't get paid $140,000 on the project. So the other thing is it's a little more complex with bidding, estimating, in the production process, right? We're bidding and estimating from blueprints. There's just more detail in there. And then the production process, you're working around other trades. You might be doing it in different pieces and segments. And it's just a little more detailed. That's not necessarily a bad thing. We can, this might look bad. It's not all bad because you can make systems to work around other trades. You can prepare for projects to last a while. These things aren't really a problem, these first three, if you find a really good contractor to work with. Margins don't always need to be bad. You can avoid risk once you find someone good to work with, and complex isn't a bad thing. It just means you need better systems, and that's something we have put together. So it's not bad, but it's not as good as repaints. Okay, then we have industrial. Who are your customers? General contractors, building owners and investors, facilities managers, corporations. Types of work here, industrial coatings, that's like steel, painting steel. And this kind of goes into public work a little too, but water towers, bridges, steel tanks, painting pipes on top of buildings, could be some of that type of stuff. Warehouses, really large warehouses or distribution centers. Big box stores could fit in here as well. Costco's, possibly Walmart's, especially if we're talking new construction on those. And then manufacturing as well. Pros to this is aesthetics not as important. So imagine if you're doing a warehouse, they don't care about clean lines as much as a showroom would, or a townhome would. So aesthetic is not as important. So it doesn't require a skilled workforce. These can be really large and easy jobs. So for example, there's an Amazon distribution center that just went up 45 minutes from here. It was probably a $250,000 for $400,000 job. I don't know, but it's definitely in the hundreds of thousands was the size of paint job. And it's basically one giant box. So you've got all these lifts and you're just spraying a huge building. So can be large, can be easy. Cons, sometimes when you get into industrial stuff, you're going to need training and certifications. You're going to need different types of equipment for different applications, different coatings, respiratory stuff, safety stuff. There's more complexity in these projects sometimes, especially a warehouse or distribution center, manufacturing center that's still operating while you're doing it. Record keeping can become an issue if you're doing stuff like water towers, bridges, or you're doing steel coatings, or you need things that are fire prevention or can withstand heat. So there's record keeping, there's more safety, more testing. Sometimes there's lower profit margins here. Again, depends on who you get in with and who you're working for. And then cash flow and capital requirements can be difficult on large, long-lasting projects. One other thing I noticed, and this is just kind of a side note, but when I was speaking with a whole bunch of different commercial painting contractors when I started my own research, it seems to me that this segment there's some better competitors. There's some big boys out there that are really, really on top of their stuff from a business standpoint. So the quality of the competition is a little better in this segment, partly because of these things. You have to have training and certifications. You have to be detailed, and have good record keeping, safety, testing, different types of equipment. And the guy I talked to, they're like just murdering it in this segment. Government and public work is the last one. So this sector, your customers are general contractors who are hired by government or public work, working directly for government or public, working for municipalities, IDOT, utilities. Types of work in this segment is schools, government and public buildings, water towers, infrastructure, wastewater treatment plants, just to name a few. Pros, less competition, less people in this niche because of the cons. It is challenging and an entirely different business getting into government and public work. You can have some huge job sizes. Roderick Richardson goes by Rich. He's done some YouTube videos with me before. He's in our Painting Business Pro group. He does a lot of schools, and he does really, really well doing schools. But if you watch his YouTube with me, he knows his stuff inside and out with regard to, agreements and certifications and just all the complexity that goes into this. So the cons to public work is the complexity. And, one of the women I interviewed or spoke to, she runs a company that does all public work. And she said, Eric, one of the tough things about this is the paperwork. Said, I've got a 3-inch stack of paperwork on my desk right now for one job we're doing. So the record keeping is just insane. You've got to do certified payroll to make sure you're meeting the prevailing wage. She said, Eric, one time we messed up and we paid a guy 1 penny short. And we had to jump through all these hoops and get all these things notarized. And we had to cut him a check for 27 cents to make up the gap because, it's government. It's government regulated. Safety, testing, government regulation, union competition, and sometimes, again, lower margins. Not always, but sometimes. So this sector, though, really is a whole different ballgame. And really all of these are. You're doing very different types of work. You're working for different people, different requirements, different codings, different protocols. They really are 4 different segments. So when we really look at these 4 segments, the growth plan that we recommend in our training course after digging into this is to start with commercial repaints. The only reason you would not start here is if you have a big background already in GC work. Like you have a heavy background in GC. Maybe you worked for a GC or you have some connections already there. But if you already have a heavy background there, same goes for industrial. If you already have a heavy background there, and same with government, if you've already got a heavy background there, then you would have a competitive advantage in these areas. But if you don't, these are not the places probably to start, especially because commercial repaints, again, it's work you already know how to bid, you already know how to produce, the same crews you already have can do it, and the payment terms are friendly. And a lot of these customers, and you're going to find, what I'm going to show you is that these customers are just, any of these customers are just as easy to get to. These jobs are just going to be better for you. Easier, simpler. And the size of the commercial repaint market is huge. It's huge. You can go and build a multi-million-dollar business on just commercial repaints. So there's really no reason to add these other segments until you've got this so dialed in where maybe you've got an estimator and a salesperson, you maybe got a project manager, so you're stepping out. It's growing on its own now, which we'll show you how to do that in a moment. It's already kind of growing on its own. And now you can say, okay, I've built that model. It's doing good. It's growing. Now I'm going to go build my GC model. So that's kind of the plan. It's, start with commercial repaints. The next easiest place to step from there would be into GC. The next easiest place to step from there would be into industrial or government. These could each be, but you probably don't even need to do all 4 of these. I don't know if we ever will, because there's just so much business in just residential and commercial repaints. So now that we're clear what business we want to target, how do we start winning that business and building this network of recurring business and people are going to refer us? So how to build recurring business. This is kind of the overview of the process. So first we need to find customers. Our customers, again, in the repaint situation, is going to be property managers or HOAs or building owners and investors or other people like that with similar titles. But let's just use property managers as the example as we go through the rest of the webinar. So first we need to find customers. So I need to find a property manager who wants to refer me business. And one thing we do is, you're going to find people who have a need for a painter, but not all of them are who you necessarily want to work for. So we teach something called a discovery meeting. And in that discovery meeting, we're finding out, is this someone I want a relationship with? Do I want to work with them? Do I want to do the type of projects they do? Do they want what I want them to want? If all they want is the cheapest painter, that's not what I want. So if I ask them, for example, why don't you have another painter you work with already? And they say, too expensive, too expensive, too expensive. We just need someone who can get jobs done as cheap as possible. I might not be interested in that relationship and wasting my time with it. So we find customers and identify the ones we want. Then we have this opportunity to bid. So once I find someone who has potential projects, they might not have one for me to bid yet, but at some point they will. And they're going to say, hey, Eric, I've got this project. Can you give me a bid? But then I need to determine, before I do the bid, do I want to bid this project? Is this an ideal project? And do I have a good shot at winning it? Because some of these commercial projects are going to take you an entire day to bid. And what some people find out the hard way is they are being used as a third bid when the person they're bidding for never had any intention of hiring them, but they needed to get a third bid. One thing we've talked about is negotiate, in the world of general contracting, there's something called negotiated work and non-negotiated work. Non-negotiated work means there is, because by the way, everything we're going to go through in the rest of the webinar applies no matter which of those segments you work in. And we go into detail in our course on each of the segments a little bit too. So if we're looking at, do I want to bid on this project? If I'm working with a GC, if it's non-negotiated work, that means the GC has not won the project yet. They're getting a bid from you to put in their bid. And so if it's a big project, there might be 10 GCs bidding, and each GC is getting 3 painter bids. So you might be bidding against 30 painters. And if you win the bid, there's a good chance you're the low bid and you underbid the project. So non-negotiated work, I have a friend who bid like 50 projects for GCs and didn't win a single one. And then we learned this, and it's like, oh, non-negotiated work. Negotiated work means they've already won the project and they're getting a bid. That's worth bidding on because they've already got the project. So this is an important step so you're not wasting a ton of time. Another example with our company was we were bidding on a insurance claim job. And we said, well, what's the claim for? And they said $40K. And I said, okay, well, our bid's probably going to be higher than that. If we're higher than that, what are we going to do about that? Who's going to pay then? And we had to work that out. We did end up bidding the project. We did end up winning the project. But we wanted to make sure that if we came in at 50, they weren't going to say, oh, well, we just can't do it. So you want to make sure it's worth bidding. And then we got to win the bid. The way we win a bid is with a detailed scope of work. I'll talk about more. A good sales process, and then our contract and cover your ass stuff. Then we need to deliver a great experience. So this is the whole process. First, I find a potential customer, I get a chance to bid, they give me the bid, then I deliver a great experience because I have a really good project planning process and project execution process. This also includes professionalism and just the cover your ass stuff with, safety and record keeping and tenant notices and warranty and job-specific safety plans and all that stuff. So once we've delivered a great experience, because we plan the project in detail, we had professionalism, then we just need to stay top of mind and make sure we nurture our relationships so that they keep giving us work. And that's the cycle. Now, if we get any of these wrong, we aren't going to build this recurring relationship. But if we get all these right, this is how we create one relationship that keeps feeding me work. So now how do we grow the whole commercial book of business? Well, one of the things we've said a lot in our course and that I've learned is that what Scott said is the roots go everywhere. So one relationship leads to more relationships through networking and your reputation. So for example, John, the property manager, he works at a property management company. There's other property managers at that same company. So one of the property management companies in town for us, there's 30 property managers who work for this company, and they manage 600 HOAs. Now, John works there. Imagine I build this relationship with John and I deliver on all these things here. So John loves working with me. I make his life easy. Then what he's going to do is, after I've done a couple great jobs for him, he's going to say, hey, some guy, Scott, maybe not Scott. I've got a Scott. So Steve says, hey, John, do you have any painters? The guy I use, they're dropping the ball. John refers us to Steve, and now we've got 2 customers. And then the other thing that happens is, people move, people get fired, people quit their jobs. And so if John quits, moves, or gets fired, moves down the road, where's he going to get a new job? Probably at another property management company. So he gets a new job. John takes his Rolodex with him, and you still do John's jobs. That's what makes John a valuable project manager. Is he's already got all the people in place to be a great project manager for a project management company. Property management company. Sorry for my misspeaking. Okay, so you kind of get the gist though, right? So once I'm in with someone, they're going to rub elbows with other potential customers. They're going to move and take their Rolodex with them. The other way the roots go everywhere is trade referrals, meaning, if John needs an electrician and you can refer him an electrician, that electrician's going to be pretty grateful when he's doing other commercial projects. He's eventually going to refer you, and you start getting referrals from the other trades you're referring. So once you get in, you start acquiring new relationships. Those relationships, you just maintain them, and they keep feeding you work, and then you keep adding more, and you build this recurring book of business. So how do we do this? Well, there's a couple pieces. One is we need a foundation. So how do we get found for commercial jobs? You can't even help it. If you're a residential painter and you're ranking on Google and being busy and growing your business, people are going to find you and you're going to get opportunities to bid commercial projects. That's just going to happen. But we can also be a lot more intentional about it. So how we get found is we make some changes to our website. We update our social media, we change our marketing message, we change up our newsletters, and we start to present ourselves as a commercial painting contractor that is perfect for the type of projects we want. And then we also need to build our foundation for maintaining relationships. So we need to set up our CRM for how to maintain and keep in touch with all the relationships we're building. We need to have a system for email newsletters to stay top of mind. And we need to stay active on social media. That's another place to stay top of mind. So LinkedIn is a really big opportunity in finding, building, nurturing commercial relationships. Then there's marketing. So this is how we might go and start to generate new potential relationships. We can do cold outreach like Google, finding people on Google, sending emails, making phone calls, reaching out on LinkedIn. We can also reach out to our existing customers and say, hey, we do commercial projects. Do you know anyone? And start to put that into our marketing message. There's some associations we can join where, for example, BOMA is Building Owners and Managers Association. All building owners are in there. That's where your customers are. So you can join associations and work those associations. So there's some more detail into how do you work associations most effectively. And then there's referrals and introductions, right? From the people you already work with. So the roots go everywhere. And the outcome of all of this is you have this slow, steady build in your commercial business. See, residential, you can get a lead today, do the estimate tomorrow, and do the job next week and be paid by next week. Commercial is going to be slower, but see, when you finish that residential job, you're done from there. Like they might not give you another job again for years, maybe never again. So you get it quick, but when it's done, it's done. This, you get it slow, but once you get it, it grows and grows and grows. So that's the big difference and what's really exciting here and why it's good to put some of these systems in place early so that your commercial business almost grows itself.